What happens when forgotten parents come back? Not with love, but with vengeance. Old Hostage is a spine-chilling horror story of four young men who are mysteriously killed one by one. In each case, the victim is found with only one thing missing: their left hand, severed and placed with a clue from their past. The deeper the investigation goes, the darker the truth becomes. Each victim once left their elderly parent in a care home called Old Hostage, never to return. But someone remembers. Someone who once lost everything and is now taking hands, one at a time. This story blends emotional guilt, supernatural revenge, and eerie suspense in a way that will haunt you long after it's over. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and press play. Candle, A Tale of Abandonment, Regret, and a Father's Final Curse. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more horror stories. Watch till the very end. The truth will shock you. Old Hostage, Part 1, The First Hand. It was the kind of death that made no sense. 24-year-old Brian Hartley was found dead in his neat little apartment. No wounds, no signs of struggle. Just stillness, except for one thing. On the kitchen counter lay his severed left hand, perfectly cut, fingers curled. In its grip was an old, blurry photograph. An elderly man, thin and hollow-eyed, sitting on a bench, staring into the camera with a look of haunting emptiness. Detective Mira Grant had seen plenty of strange deaths in her 8 years, but this one unsettled her. The apartment was locked from inside. No fingerprints other than Brian's. No forced entry. No poison. No explanation. But in the bedroom, something even stranger. Words had been scratched into the wall, deep and shaky, as if by an old, shaking hand. He forgot the hand that taught him to walk. Mira stood staring at the words. Back at the precinct, Brian's record showed only one unusual detail. 2 years ago, he had admitted his aging father to an elderly care home named Old Hostage, and after that, there was no further contact, no visits, not even a phone call. Later that night, Mira sat at her desk, going through security footage of the building Brian lived in. Around 3:11 a.m., the hallway camera caught a figure, tall, hunched, wearing a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat, walking slowly toward Brian's door. The footage glitched. The next frame, the hallway was empty. The medical examiner's report came in. No cause of death found. It's as if his heart just gave up. And the hand, Mira asked, clean cut, almost surgical, but no blood loss. It was cut post-mortem, or maybe even something else, almost like the hand left. Just as Mira began piecing all together, another body turned up. Same age, same eerie calm, and once again, a severed hand. Part 2, The House Remembers. The second body was found less than 48 hours later. Jake Nolan, 26, a tech consultant, was discovered dead in a roadside motel just outside the city. The cleaner who found him was so shaken she couldn't speak for hours. His body lay on the bed, eyes open, no visible injuries, calm, like he'd simply stopped living, except for one grotesque detail. His left hand had been cleanly severed and was placed neatly on the nightstand. In the hand, clutched tight, was a torn ID badge from Old Hostage Senior Care Facility. Detective Mira Grant was now dealing with a pattern. Two men, both young, healthy, both missing their left hand. Both had last connections to one particular care home. She visited the motel and scanned the security footage herself. Most of it was useless, grainy, dark. But at 3:11 a.m., there was a brief moment. A single frame. A tall silhouette wearing a long coat and wide-brimmed hat stood in front of Jake's door. The figure's posture was slightly bent, and his right hand held something, a cane maybe. The very next frame, the hallway was empty. No doors opened. No one exited. It was as if the man had never been there. Mira pulled up Jake's personal records. 3 months ago, he had placed his mother into Old Hostage, paid for a 6-month package, and never visited her again. No calls, no letters, nothing, just like Brian Hartley. Mira drove to Old Hostage, which sat at the edge of the city, surrounded by bare trees and fog-soaked roads. The place looked less like a care home and more like an abandoned hospital. Faded paint, boarded windows, A strange silence. Inside, the stench of bleach mixed with mildew. The receptionist looked startled to see someone walk in. "I need information about two former patients," Mira said, showing the names, George Hartley and May Nolan. The receptionist frowned. "Neither are here anymore." "What do you mean?" "They vanished months ago, like many others." "Vanished?" The woman leaned in closer, her voice a shaky whisper. "No trace. No family response. It's like someone collected them." Mira felt a cold knot in her stomach. Was there anyone unusual working here recently? Any staff changes? The receptionist hesitated. "Well, we had one volunteer. An old man. Came in every few weeks. Said he used to be a resident here. Always wore gloves. Said his name was Thomas." "Full name?" She shook her head. "Just Thomas. But one thing I remember, he had only one hand. Left arm ended at the wrist." Before leaving, Mira walked the back garden. Dead leaves covered the broken path. A rusted bench sat under a leafless tree. And there, in the distance, someone stood watching her. A tall man, wide-brimmed hat, coat blowing slightly in the breeze. She turned to approach. But as soon as she blinked, he was gone. That night, at her apartment, she spread out the files, for things were now certain. 1. Both victims had once abandoned a parent at Old Hostage. 2. Both parents had mysteriously vanished. 3. Both victims had died with no physical trauma, just a missing hand. 4. Both scenes were marked with cryptic messages about the hand that taught them to walk. Mira sat back in her chair. "Is this revenge?" she muttered. "Or is it something older than guilt?" And deep in the shadows of the city, the man in the hat watched from a rooftop. He raised his single remaining hand and smiled. Part 3, A Father's Curse. The third victim didn't die quietly. Alan Price, 28, was found slumped in his car, parked in an empty field. His face was frozen in a wide, agonized scream, as if he'd seen something so terrifying it tore the life out of him. His mouth was filled with ashes, and his left hand was gone. Police searched the area for hours. Nearly a mile away, under a rusted swing set in a forgotten children's park, they found the hand. It held a tiny baby shoe. Detective Mira Grant stood at the scene, numb. "This one's different," the officer beside her said. "No message, no photos. Just pain." But Mira knew better. Back at her office, she dug deeper into Alan's life, and there was 3 years ago. He admitted his father, Douglas Price, to Old Hostage. A month later, Alan stopped visiting. Payments were automated. Not a single call, not a letter since. Another abandoned parent. Another son without a hand. Another soul claimed by whatever darkness walked inside that crumbling care home. That night, Mira returned to Old Hostage. The receptionist was gone. The lights were dim. The building felt colder than before. She walked the halls slowly, scanning room numbers. Most were empty. In one, she found only a rocking chair moving on its own. In the basement, she discovered old storage files, dusty folders, outdated patient records, and beneath it all, a hidden drawer labeled Former Residents, Deceased. She flipped through the pages, eyes scanning names until one caught her breath. Thomas Granger. Age, 76. Former resident. Admitted 9 years ago by his son, Michael Granger. Mental status, unstable. Released 5 years ago. Current location, unknown. Handwritten notes in the margin read. Repeats the same sentence during outbursts. First, "I took my son, the hand that once held my finger." Mira stared at the paper. He took his own son first. She searched the archives again. Michael Granger never reported missing, but he disappeared the same year Thomas was released. Had no one connected it? Suddenly, she heard a noise, a soft tapping. She turned toward the basement wall. A shadow stood near the doorway. Long coat, cane, hat. "Thomas Granger?" she called. Silence. "You're killing them, aren't you?" The figure took a slow step forward. Only one hand hung from his coat. The other sleeve was empty. "Why?" she demanded. The voice that replied was tired, but cold, because they forgot. He took another step. Forgot the hands that held them, the backs that carried them, the tears we wiped when they were too small to even say thank you. A long pause. I waited years in that place. No visits, no voices, just silence. I remembered every name, every boy who left their parent behind to rot. So I became to rot. Mira didn't flinch. You killed your own son. Thomas's voice cracked, but not with sorrow. He was the first. The lesson had to begin somewhere. He turned and vanished into the shadows. That night, Mira received an anonymous letter at her home. No return address. Inside was only a single line. Only one more left and then I'll rest. And a drawing of a severed hand holding a wedding ring. Part 4, the fifth name, 3 dead, 3 hands taken. Each murder linked by silence, abandonment, and a one-handed shadow who once called himself a father. Detective Mira Grant was now certain. Thomas Granger was a killer, and he had one more target. She stared at the sketch that had arrived in the mail. The severed hand holding a wedding ring. She ran the ring through police database photo records. It matched an old photograph from a residence file at Old Hostage. David Linwood, a man abandoned by his son 2 years ago. His son's name, Lucas Linwood, 25. Mira rushed to Lucas's listed address, but he was already gone. A neighbor mentioned he'd packed in a hurry and left town the night before. He said someone was watching him from across the street. The neighbor recalled. Said he felt like something was following him, something cold. That was 12 hours ago. Mira traced Lucas's phone to a remote mountain cabin he had rented through a last-minute app. Police rushed the location. The cabin door was open. Inside, water covered the wooden floor, as if it had rained indoors. Lucas Linwood's body was found face down near the fireplace. No signs of wounds, but his left hand was gone. It was discovered floating in the kitchen sink, perfectly preserved, holding a small teddy bear keychain, one sold at the Old Hostage gift shop a decade ago, carved into the cabin wall. The hand let go, the son let go, but I never did. Back in the city, Mira sat alone at her desk. There were no more sons left, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. There had been 4 victims, but the letter Thomas sent said, "Only one more left, then I'll rest." That meant 5. Suddenly, a thought struck her like lightning. She grabbed a file on Thomas Granger's son, Michael Granger. He had been declared missing, never found. But one police report mentioned a burned-out car, discovered near an abandoned Highway 5 years ago. A charred body was inside, no identification possible. DNA had never been tested. The case had gone cold. Mira rushed to evidence storage and ordered a fresh test on the remains from that car. The results came back in 2 hours. Michael Granger was the first victim. Thomas had killed his own son. Years ago, before any of this began. The 5th wasn't coming. It had already happened. That night, Mira returned one last time to Old Hostage. It had been permanently shut down. No staff, no residents. Only creaking walls and whispering wind. She stepped into the empty recreation room. Dust clung to the walls like memories. There, on the far wall, she saw a large, smudged mirror. Drawn across it in faded fingerprints were the outlines of 5 hands, one smaller than the rest. A whisper echoed behind her. "He held my finger when he learned to walk." Mira turned. No one was there, but in the center of the floor lay a single glove, empty, old, and soaked with something red and dry. She didn't take it with her. Some stories aren't meant to be solved. Some ghosts don't want peace. They just want to be remembered. The end.